This works? This good?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. So I wrote my first book, and it came out about a month ago. And I thought I'm doing that whole have to do press and readings and things like this. So practicing here. So this is the first time I've done a reading from the book. So the book is called Undone, and the story is about a 17-year-old named Tyler who. He and his dad are in a car accident, and he survives the car accident, but his dad doesn't. And his mother decides that they have to go spend the summer at their beach house to try and put their lives back together. So he's there with his cousin, and his mom, and his aunt, and it's just not working for him. He's having a hard time. He's struggling. He's kind of withdrawn. And one of the problems is because everyone's treating him like the kid who lost his dad. Like they ask him, do you want to go do this? Would it be okay? Do you want to go do this? And he's like, no, none of this is okay. I wish he was here, right? But he starts to hang out with this kid named Finn, who's a surfer. And he likes hanging out with him because he treats him not like the kid whose dad just died. And so the episode that I'm going to read here is one of the first times he starts to realize this. They had just gone surfing. So he's gone surfing for the first time, and they're going back to the car, and this is the conversation that they actually have. So once the boards are secured, Finn opens the car door. I tell him he can have the towel to change since he is wet and he needs to dry off. I step behind the car door, and deciding not to be so self-conscious this time, I let go of my shorts and I start to change. I have sand on my stomach and my hair, along my arms and legs, and I do my best to try and brush it off. Then I duck down, reach into the back seat, and pick up my neatly folded clothes. Your scars stand out a lot when you're burnt, Finn says quietly. I glance back at him to see him with the towel wrapped around his waist. Holding my pants in my hand, I actually rotate my arm to try and see some of the scars I have on my arm. Actually, he says, I meant the one on your head. And he rubs his head where my scar would be. I kind of laughed and went to say, I know exactly where that scar is. The doctor said my stitches would burn and itch, and it was all I could do to not scratch them after I got home from the hospital. It took about 3 weeks, but I finally had a light covering of hair, but the scabs and the stitches kept getting stuck in there and burning and healing and hurting. It was all I could do not to scratch them. Finally, after about another 3 weeks, I sat in the doctor's chair for almost 40 minutes as he snipped away the stitches and my hair. It's like really bright pink, Finn continues. Did you go through the windshield or something? I run my fingers through the hair and follow the scar to where it just barely appears on my forehead. No, I was in my seatbelt and all the windows shattered when the car started rolling. I really don't know how it happened. I think I just hit my head like against the edge of the window or something. Finn looks at me and says, well, you must feel really lucky that you only cut your head and not your face, or all that glass didn't get in your eye. This is the first time someone has said that I've been lucky about the accident. Not knowing what else to say, I tell him, I guess you're right. And then I continue to brush off the sand, all the while trying to figure out if I really did feel lucky. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital and had to have surgery. I spent months on crutches and with stitches and bandages on my head. I actually now have pins in my hands and my wrists. Oh, and let's not forget the fact that Dad died. One moment we're in the car together, and then he's gone. I mean, what is lucky about any of that? Suddenly I get hit in the face with the towel. I pull it off to see Finn pulling his jeans on, and he says, here, use this to brush the sand off you. Trust me, you don't want a fine layer of sand caught between you and your own clothes as it slowly scrapes a fine layer of skin off you. I stand there, almost angry that he has the nerve to bring up the accident, the scars, Dad, and then he just quickly moves on. Because it doesn't affect him. His throat doesn't close and go dry at the thought of Dad being dead. His stomach doesn't tighten during dinner each night as Aunt Marian tries to make trite and pointless conversation. And since coming to the beach this summer, I have spent countless hours sitting in the sun on the beach, and then I come home and shower and sit on the porch, and everyone can see my wet hair plastered against my head. And no one, not Mom, not Aunt Miriam, not Liam, has ever pointed out the scar on my head, or my arms, or my feet. We don't even talk about the accident. We just sit there wishing it into non-existence. And part of me is angry that Finn made me think of my scars, because next he's going to feel comfortable and ask about like the surgeries, and after that, the weeks I spent on crutches where I hobbled through school, having to ignore the stares of everyone in the cafeteria, or how the teachers, who never even remembered my name, are suddenly asking me after class, do I need more help with my homework? And then after that, he's going to want to talk about the accident. Was it the wet roads or another car that caused it? And whose side of the car was hit first? And how many times did we roll it? And then finally we're going to have to talk about why in the hell did Dad die when it was my side of the car that crashed into the concrete pylons? All the thoughts that I've ever had, that I've never ever shared with anyone, all of them might suddenly come out. And part of me is just not ready to handle any of it. But part of me is so relieved because finally someone is willing to say to me, it happened.